Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the confidence architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we motivate, we educate, and we inspire you. And I've been looking forward to this interview. I'll tell you, this gentleman is a rock star. He's dear to my heart. And I got to say, when you meet this guy, I think you're going to fall in love. I know you're going to fall in love with this gentleman. That's why I got to put the music louder, because he's going to be that rock star. He's a rock star in the making. But in all seriousness, ladies and gentlemen, my guest is amazing. I want to welcome right now the one and only. Let's give him a big round of applause. Mr. Harry Spaight. Welcome to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, man.
Daniel, it is such an honor to be here with the original rock star. Man, I am so thrilled to be here with you. So what is the good word, sir?
Man, well, I've had the blessing of getting to know you this past year, really just spending a lot of time with you. And I know what amazing individual you are, what an amazing rock star you are. We're going to talk about your book today, but let the world of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, let our audience know, who is this Harry Spaight? Who is this guy, man? Who is he?
Who is this guy? Yeah, great question. I appreciate you. And, really my whole life is about serving. And I've done that for years prior to this show. I was, years ago, I served in mission work, and my wife and I visited great places. We actually lived a couple of years in the Dominican Republic. And then when we came back to raise a family, we decided that I needed a real job, and I ended up getting a sales job. And so for the last 20 years or so, I've been in sales and sales leadership, and just wanted to share the world how you can do that without necessarily being the pushy salesperson. So that's kind of who I am.
So you're not a sleazy salesperson? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, sleaze and sales seems to go hand in hand. And I've always cringed when I've heard people say things that just are sleazy. So yeah, I know you can do it without acting that way, right? Being a good person and all, like you.
Well, you're a great person. I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Harry is just amazing. We got a chance to spend one-on-one time at some of the events that we had. He came to Sticker Shock, and he's an amazing individual. And his book is going to definitely, you want to get his book. His book's out right now. Go get it. We're going to talk about that, Selling with Dignity. You see it I see it right behind him right there. So we'll give that a plug, of course, for sure. But let's start off with what you said. You said that you can be a good salesman and not be salesy. So I want to open up with that conversation, because it breaks my heart. 2020, it's already a whole year after the pandemic finished. We're already into 2022, and there's still businesses that haven't recovered. But the truth of it is if no business has sales, if no business has revenue, they have to close down. And it breaks my heart when I see a lot of these organizations, small businesses, even entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, that they don't grasp that you have to sell yourself. You have to sell your products. You have to sell your book, right? Selling with Dignity. You have to sell it. And
exactly.
Talk to that person. Let's start off this conversation with that. Like they leave that 9 to 5. They come into a business, and then they think that they can hang out at Starbucks all day or just be in these networking events. There comes a point when you have to ask for business. So what is something that how you help your clients when say you go to a networking event and you've had that conversation, and then at the end of the presentation or at the end of your pitch, to say however you want to call it, they say, well, what do you think? And they never follow up. They just don't have it together. What's one of the biggest mistakes that you see a lot of young entrepreneurs and even businesses maybe that have been in business for a while, Harry?
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's dear to my heart. I totally believe that sales can drive the economy, and it's not about the competition. It's about you, right? It's about what it is you do as an individual to grow your company. And years ago, I heard an expression about painting the windows black. And it was based on the concept that people were worried about what was going on outside of the world, outside of the office, with competition, the economy, and all kinds of excuses. And, that line of painting the windows black stuck with me. Is like, it really depends on us. Right. And so what you asked is, what are some of the things that newer entrepreneurs are struggling with, and even companies that have been in business for a while, is that they do tend, the ones that are struggling tend to hide behind their computer, right? They get on, they're checking emails, want to make sure the website's perfect, the landing pages are perfect. But if you had no website, no landing pages, and you just did it the old-fashioned way, and you went out and spoke to people and picked up the phone and punched in numbers, there's no doubt in my mind you'd be successful. Now, to scale,
I love what you said.
right?
I'm laughing because I'm over here behind my computer. I'm like, it makes sense. So, and ladies and gentlemen, Harry's getting ready to drop some massive, massive wisdom. This is the part of the show where I tell you, get out your pen and paper, because something happens when you put pen to paper. You retain more of the information, and Harry's going to drop some wisdom. So get out your pen and paper, take some notes, because it's going to definitely change your life. I love what you said. We hide behind the computer, and then you got to paint the windows black. Keep going. Tell us this, because you're right. Because I think I get it. It's a different era, but I think so many times we as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, we think about that funnel. A funnel is going to solve our whole sales revenue problem, and it's not. Tell us, come on, keep dropping that wisdom, Harry. Right?
All right.
We're hiding behind our thing, and look at the darn phone is what Harry's saying. Come on.
Exactly. So, like, for instance, we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and we're driven by likes and accolades. That's not putting money in our pockets, right? So you can have, 1,000 likes, 5,000 likes, but at the end, is that paying your bills, right? You can send out great emails, but if the emails are not coming back, staring at your screen and waiting for an email to pop in, that spam isn't helping you either. So what can we do proactively? We can, if I can say bitch and moan, we can bitch and moan all we want, and that's not going to change anything. We can complain about the economy. We can complain about the pandemic. But the reality is, if you go to any store, there are people that are buying things, right? Go to the stores. Amazon is still in business. Walmart's still in business. Go to an office park. You're going to see cars in the parking lot. Those offices in the office complex, what are they doing, right? They're not just sitting around doing nothing. They're driving the economic engine of the country. So all we need as individuals is our little piece of the action, right? So how do we get that piece of the action? And I say we have to be proactive. We have to go out and get it. And a lot of times that's just, it's asking for the business. It's talking to people. It's picking up the phone. Like you mentioned, people will have interest in us, and they'll give us a business card. They'll want to have a conversation. We'll look at it and we'll say, oh, it's been so long. They probably don't remember me. I'm not sure they're even expecting a call. It's probably not a good time. That's what I mean about painting the windows black. Forget about all that negative thinking. Just do what we know needs to be done in order to be successful, and good things will happen. Boom, what do you think about that?
I gotta give you. He's just dropping wisdom right there. Boom, 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 boom. Think about what Harry just said, ladies and gentlemen. So many times we make excuses. We don't even get the phone and make one phone call, and we say, man, business is slow, business is bad. And then we start that inner dialogue that takes us downhill. And what Harry is saying is, when you paint the windows black, stop listening to what's outside of your door. Stop listening to what's outside of your window. Stop listening to social media. Some of you just got to get off of social media because you're addicted to it and you're listening to the wrong thing. And you see somebody else's post and man, so-and-so's doing amazing. And I don't have any, like they just bought a new car, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. So the biggest mistake I see a lot of times with social media, Harry, is that entrepreneurs use it for the wrong reason, right? They go on there and then they see somebody else they post their highlight reels, and they're comparing themselves to their highlight reels when in reality, how do you even know that highlight reel is real? And then you're
Right.
worried about what everybody else is doing outside those windows, is what Harry is saying. Worry about what's going on inside your four walls, your studio, your office, in your life. To give us some advice, because the windows, right? I just painted my windows black. Now, what does Daniel Gomez Inspires do? Guide me on this, Harry. What do I do next to really, we'll just say, mama's not happy. I'm behind on the rent and there's no groceries in there. And this is a story that I hear from so many people. Again, the number one thing is when you ask, well, maybe you need a coach, maybe you need some guidance. And then the
Yeah.
next thing they say is, I can't afford it, right? And talk to us about that. Speak to that individual, even that small enterprise right now that needs to hear this conversation, because they are too focused outside those black windows when it's like really is in order for you to become more in business, it starts with the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's so many directions to go here, but I'm going to go with your mindset, first of all, right? You've got to, first of all, believe that this is for you. If you don't believe, then you're set for failure. So you have to believe, number one, that there's a lot of people that are succeeding and you're smarter than they are. So I looked at that when I started out. I said, look, there's a lot of people making money in sales and they're no brighter than I am. I know I could do at least as good as some of these people, right? So that was what got me started. Then the thing that is next is really look at, what do you need in order to succeed? How many clients do you need? And I think this is where a lot of people miss the mark, because they say, well, I'll do business with anybody. I'll just take them all. But they don't start. They don't have a defined number. So I would look at is, say, what does your average sale bring you in, right? What does it bring to you economically, your average sale? Is it $20? Is it $500? Is it $2,000? Then you say, well, how many of those do I need in a month to live? Right. So now you're putting numbers together. This is all part of building a plan. So the number that you may need to live is 10 sales a month, right? Well, how do you get those 10 sales? Do you need to talk to 10,000 people, or do you need to talk to 1,000 people? And how can we break that number down to a number of calls and emails and contacts, direct messages in a week, right? So now if we get all of that going, and we stay consistent with our practices, then we're slowly going to build a pipeline. It doesn't happen overnight, but eventually the sales start to trickle in. And after 6 months, I mean, you got to give yourself 6 months, I think, in anything. But after 6 months of doing this work, the pipeline is beginning to fill in, and then good things are starting to happen. You're starting to get some business, and then that will help build the snowball of more and more business. So I don't know. Does that help? What's your thought on that, Daniel?
Man, you're just dropping wisdom over here, man. I'm gonna get you. This guy's, he's gonna break my little mixer over here. But think about what he said. You got to believe it, ladies and gentlemen. The biggest lie that we've been told, and I love that Harry said this, is that you got to believe that you can do sales. You got to believe that you can be a great account executive. You got to believe that you can be a great sales professional. That the reality is this. You know what breaks my heart, Harry, is a lot of people that they believe the idea and they don't embody that role as a sales professional, as an account executive. So, and what I mean by that is they don't tell anybody what they do. They're like, right. I'm like, guess what? 1,000 business cards isn't going to do you any good in your cupboard. 1,000 business cards isn't going to do you any good in your car, in the trunk. You got to go out there and give them out and let them know, hey, this is what I do for a living, because we don't work for the CIA. I always say this in my sales training, because they think that they're embarrassed of what they do. They think they work for the CIA, so they don't tell anybody. It's like, no, you got to go out there and tell the world.
Right. Or they don't ask, right? They don't ask for the conversation or the meeting, or even after the meeting, they don't ask for the follow-up because they don't want to be pushy. They've never been trained.
Yes.
Right. So a lot of times entrepreneurs come from the world of being employed, right? So they were good at their job and they said, well, I want to pursue my dream, or I want to pursue this, but they never were in sales for the most part. And they didn't go through any kind of sales training or the day-to-day of sales. So, I mean, it doesn't come naturally. right? Asking for the order for people who are shy or introverted and not vomiting all over themselves, right? Doing it tactfully is not necessarily something you just grasp by pure luck, right? So, I encourage people to read and get trained so that you can develop your skills, because, the best people, the best businesses typically have the best sales types at the top, right?
Yeah.
So they're the CEOs that are going out, getting known, and asking the community basically in a nice way to do business with us, versus hiding again behind social and doing nothing, right?
Well, here's a great fun fact about our conversation is that, one of the top 3 professions that produces the most millionaires is sales. There's
Yeah.
more sales professional multimillionaires that were produced, that became millionaires from sales, because there's no limit. Why,
Right.
unfortunately, when I was growing up, I remember when my wife had this was about 20, almost 25 years ago, because we've been married 25 years. She was working at Home Depot, and, there was a gentleman I was cause I had my degree in horticulture. He was making $20 an hour as some type of horticulturist for Home Depot. And I'm like, man, if I could just make $20 an hour,
Right.
we're set for life. And I think at the
Right.
time I was making, I don't know, I was probably making like $9 or $10 an hour. This was 25 years ago. I was like, I'm set. And we have this illusion that $20 an hour is like a lot. And in reality, it's 40,000 back then. So maybe it's equivalent to like 60,000, 70,000 now, but still not a lot. When in sales, you can make over 6 figures. You can make $250,000. You can make $1 million. Just
Absolutely.
there's no cap to it. So,
right.
So we got to believe. So we're believing in it, right? We're believing in it. What's the number one training tip that you've given that really help people believe it for themselves? Because I think it's easy to believe it for Harry. It's easy to believe it for Daniel Gomes Inspired. It's easy to believe it for Joe Blow and for Mary, but it's not easy to believe it for certain people. How can we help them to believe it for themselves, Harry? Because the average person, they quit sales within, I think I can't remember this last stat, but we'll just say they don't even last 2 weeks most times.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of that. I think the big thing about belief is just look back at what you have accomplished in life. Right. Ooh. So we've all overcome obstacles. Simple things, right? What do we learn in our lives that we do without even thinking today? Right. I mean, we don't think about picking up a fork and figuring out how to eat. We don't figure out how to cut our steak. I mean, this is all automatic to us, right? But at one time, I was pretty terrible at cutting my own piece of beef. I had to have mom help me, and eventually I figured it out, right? But in time, whatever it is, right, it's learning to drive, learning how to use Excel. I mean, all kinds of different, learning how to use your phone, learning how to communicate. There's so many things that we have learned in our lives and developed skills. And if we stop for a minute and just reflect on that and say, I'm pretty good at what I've done, right? I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good at that. And then we say, I'm not very good at sales. Well, you weren't very good at cutting a piece of beef either when you're 7, right? What changed? How did you learn to cut a piece of beef? Well, you learned through practice, through training. The same can be true with sales. If we just say we're not good at, I'm not good at tying my shoes, I could still be at my age having someone tie my shoes or wear Velcro, right? But I realized I needed to learn. Same is true with sales, right? I mean, what about you? I mean, you've done something similar. You weren't always a term natural salesperson. You had to learn, didn't you?
Well, no.
Throw me off, ladies and gentlemen. That's Daniel Gomez.
I will tell you that something that I did learn, because when I made the transition from the automotive industry into entrepreneurship, I was a pushy salesman, right? I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, right? I'm just going to be,
that's great.
Well, I think for me, I knew my value. I think sometimes when we start as an entrepreneur or that small business owner, we undervalue who we are, right? Because not to say that they haven't tasted success to a certain level, but for most parts, what I see is around 50% or more of entrepreneurs undervalue themselves, and they charge way lower than what they should. So
Mhm.
to me, when I came out, I knew I was already making a way over six figures. So I knew my time was valuable. So like, hey, like either we're gonna do this or we're not gonna do this. And I think that I had to learn more to business side than just really the business to consumer side. So I really had to kind of change my format and I guess
You
really value people more too.
right.
Because I would be like in my mind, I'd be like, well, don't you get it? Like, how do you not get this? But if you've never been trained to see a virus, you're never going to know what a virus looks like. If you've never been trained to see a bacteria, you're not going to know what it looks like. So if you're not trained to see a customer, guess what? You're not going to
Yeah.
know what a customer looks like.
Right.
Does that make
Well,
sense?
that's absolutely. So that's the whole thing, is that you need to learn, right? And if you're open-minded, you'll read, you'll watch YouTube videos, right? If you just say, I suck at this, well, guess what? You're going to suck at it until you say, I need to embrace this and go through the growth mindset, right? Where we say, look, I'm going to fail a little bit. I'm going to look awkward a little bit, but who cares? I'm going to work through this and get better. I mean, we all do that in various aspects of our lives, but for some reason, when it comes to selling ourselves, we're typically two extremes. One extreme is we're super pushy and we vomit all over ourselves and we push people away because all we do is talk about ourselves and our product. Or we're on the other extreme, which is we're afraid to ask for the order because we don't want to look like the first salesperson, right? So we've got to find that happy medium in between, which is being a good person, treating others well, and still asking for the business so that we can provide for our families.
I
What's
love
your
that.
thought?
Man, no, I agree with you. You gotta, every personality is different. You and I both know there's four dominant personalities, and you just got to learn which personality A you are, and then B, once you learn your personality, you got to figure out what type of personality am I selling to. So I think what you're dropping is massive wisdom. You can't be scared to ask for the business, and you can't definitely be arrogant and go in there and just talk about me because I know
Right.
people like that and it just
Yeah.
turns people off. Let's shift a little bit here because I
Okay.
really want to ask you this. Because right now your book just launched. You're just rock star on the making. You're really doing amazing things. When was there a time on your sales journey that you lost confidence and you really just thought about giving up, right? Because we're giving the winning side of it, but you were defeated. What did you learn about yourself in that season and what kept you from giving up in sales and how did you gain your confidence back?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really mean that when I say it's a great question, because I can go right back to, I think it was the year 2000. And I just moved my family to Northern Virginia, and I was in the Washington, D.C. market. And I thought I knew a lot in sales. I was cranking where I was up in Connecticut and moving down to a new area. I said, how hard can it be? I'm Harry Spaight after all. I had confidence. I knew what I was doing. And it was one loss after another. And I was like starting all over. So when I first started, I had a bunch of months with zeros next to my name in sales, which is not a great feeling, but I learned the business and it's all part of the learning curve. But when I started doing that again, after I had several years experience, but I was in a new market, I didn't recognize, what the challenges were. I was in deals, but I was the outsider. I was not known. I didn't have a great story. And I remember talking to my boss, I had tears in my eyes. And I said, man, I didn't realize that I was going to be like a failure. And then my boss, who is actually endorsed my book, Steve Rolla, he says, look, you're not a failure, right? I didn't hire a failure. And I went, yeah, that's right. Okay. So, I mean, it snapped me out. I needed to be slapped, sort of like the patent slap, I think, and just wake up, Harry. And I was down this path of negativity, which is, I was learning the market. I was earning my stripes. I had some losses, but that didn't define me. Right. And for a moment there, it was defining me. And I had to get out of it and say, I'm not a loser, for crying out loud. Look what I did before. And you have to go around, snap out of it and say, I'm a winner after all. I'm a winner.
I'm a winner, baby.
Right.
Woo!
That's it. So eventually, I mean, there's always slumps in sales. right? And we're always going to look in the mirror and say, what am I doing wrong? And that's okay. But when we start saying things like, I'm not cut out for this, that's when we really need to start speaking to someone who is a very good counselor / coach that can help us navigate through those times. But we're all going to have slumps, right? I mean,
So how did
that's
you
all
get your
part of the
confidence back?
business. So, just reflecting back on that time period, it was, the wins started to happen. Once you get a win, right, you're doing the work and you need a break, and the breaks will come. And I think of the Thomas Edison quote, and I'm paraphrasing it, but it's like, you don't know when it's going to happen, but you just have to keep enduring until it happens. And that was what I did. I said, no, I'm just going to keep working through this. And when I get the break, that's when things will start to really build. And they did, right? But if I quit, I could have been inches, really, right? It could have been the next deal, the next opportunity. That the same day, an email could have come in and said, hey, Harry, we're ready. And if I quit, I would have missed out on that.
Oh,
Right?
I love that.
You've got to go and endure until the stuff happens, until you start seeing the results. What do you think?
Man, ladies and gentlemen, I got to give them a little, you are inches away and you're about to give up. You're about to quit on your sales career. You're about to quit as an entrepreneur and you're inches away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't forget about the book, 3 Feet from Gold. You're not even feet away. You're inches away. So what if today you quit and then tomorrow that email comes in, I need an order.
Oh my goodness,
and
dude.
It's a $5,000 order, a $10,000 order. That would suck.
Yeah. And it's a great, I have witnessed this being a sales leader. When sales reps have quit, the emails come in sometimes weeks and months later, because they'd get forwarded to me since I was in management. I get an email saying, we're ready. It's like, well, the person's long gone, but we'll take care of you. Right. It's a shame, but it's, if you don't have the stick to itiveness and you leave, you could be leaving out on, a potential gold mine, acres of diamonds come.
Well, I do want to say this because you're what Harry is saying is wisdom right here, ladies and gentlemen. And he's right. And so many times we get into that account executive position, that sales professional, realtor, or automotive, whatever it is. Sales is sales, right? Sales industry as a sales professional. But so many times, I remember when I left my old position before I went into the sales arena, Harry, like people said, well, so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that. I'm like, great, well, I'm not them. But it's funny when as human beings, 90% of us we're trained to trade dollars for hours, right? We're trained, right? We base our value on $10 an hour, $20 an hour, $30 an hour. We think it's a lot of money. So when somebody says, I want to take a commission job, you're crazy. Right. And then we listen to them. And then we really want to make a go of this sales career that we're embarking on. And what Harry's saying is you have a month or two where it doesn't go the way you want, and then you're inches away from victory. But maybe it's your wife on you or your husband on you, or maybe it's that your friends, right? Your homies or your colleagues, however you're at, your mates. If you're from England, your mate says, why do you want to do something ridiculous? I thought I told you sales isn't going to work. And you've barely given it 6 weeks. Well, you got to give it 6 months, like Harry said. Don't listen to your mates. Don't listen to your friends, your associates. They don't have that dream that you have. Your dream is for you. I always say this. And it takes somebody special in sales, because one thing that I'll tell you, Harry, that I always say is sales builds your character. Sales builds your character. You're not going to stay the same person that you were even a month ago, a year ago, much less a day ago, because there's always something new happening in sales, and it builds your character and it does build your resilience. And the people that embrace that and see it, that, okay, it's a journey of becoming that future me. But most people, guess what, Harry? What I've seen, and you can answer me on this, they don't want to change. They want the benefits of the 6-figure income. They want the benefits of earning $10,000 a month, but they don't want to change to become that person. And then they hear it, I told you that it wasn't going to work, and they give up on that dream because this other person outside Says, I told you sales was dumb.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can think of a guy who does real estate, and we had him on our podcast recently. And the guy was from the former Soviet Union. I think the Ukraine, doesn't really matter. But he got into real estate sales and crushed it. Right. So he runs a team for Keller Williams. He's making tons of money. The guy still makes outbound calls 2 hours a day. And I said, why are you doing that? He says, I've got to set the example. So he's an entrepreneur, runs a team, and he has his own mortgage company as well. So he's got all of these things going, and he's still making outbound calls, right? Why? And that's where a lot of us, we know it's uncomfortable. It's not comfortable for him at first, but then it becomes, again, part of what your ritual is what you do. And, you know, you can't look at that person and say he's not super successful, because the guy is super successful, and people may want to be like that. But I guarantee you, most people don't want to go near that kind of work ethic. Right. And one last thing, he said, I was talking about, you know, what kind of ramp up it was to get into real estate. He says, honestly, first 6 months, I sold nothing. Right. So there you go. It was like every month, I'm sure he was looking at the bills saying, how am I paying this one? Or, you know, my savings is dwindling, or my credit cards are getting maxed out. And I've done that, right? Where I'm putting stuff on credit cards just to pay the bills, believing that this was all going to eventually work out, which it did.
Yeah. So I like what you said, because I think most people, they don't make that investment in themselves as a sales professional, or even as an entrepreneur. We just had our last sticker shock here a couple of months ago, and we invested thousands in a new stage. We bought some new lights just to give a new experience. And you have to make that investment in your business. I just also invested in some other stuff that it's $1,000, right? Sometimes we make this revenue too, and we make the mistake and we spend all the money and we don't reinvest it back into our business. And you can't do that. You gotta of course, you have to set aside your money for your expenses, pay your vendors, pay your employees, but you have to reinvest in your business, because I said, I'd rather, instead of playing the stock market and get 10% return, why not invest in Daniel Gomez Inspires and get a 50% return if I can put forth the effort?
Yeah, I mean, and that is absolutely correct. And if let's go back to the entrepreneur that wishes they could do better in sales, right? What do they do? Sometimes they'll get a book, you know, they'll flip through it and say, well, I got this, I got Fanatical Prospecting, or whatever the book is. And it's a great book, by the way, by Jeb Blount. But the point is that reading a book is not going to be enough, right? For those of us who really succeeded in sales, where you're making six figures year over year for years and years, there's all kinds of education that we're doing, right? We're learning how to be better listeners, better communicators, watching body language. We're not just figuring out how to close and ask for the order. We're looking at, you know, what people are saying and listening and saying, are there clues to what they're saying? When people are raising concerns, about price, we don't say things like, well, I'm not going to lower my price, and walk away and say, well, I showed them, right? All the things that people do, we're being trained on consistently. So we have to put money back into our business, which is sales. And the same is true with entrepreneurs, because you are the best salesperson for your company. And so you have to invest in yourself, how to be better in sales. And just thinking you're good at it.
Oh, baby, I love that.
Right? Just thinking we're good at it we're not, right? Let's ask someone who's great in sales for an honest evaluation, right? Yeah. Say, what am I doing wrong? I'm pretty sure they're going to come up with a couple of things, right? Because we do it every day. We breathe this stuff.
Well, even myself, I believe that a great sales professional, you have to do this. And this is something that I do, right? You got to be learning, right? You got to learn, relearn, and then unlearn the crap that you pick up along the way that you
True.
don't need to, right? So to be that top tier sales professional, that account executive, you got to be learning. You got to learn, you got to unlearn, and then you got to relearn what you forgot that you had already learned. And that's why that's one thing I'll tell you. For me, what's really helped me is listening to Audible again. Like I just finished going through one of my first book I ever read on sales was Og Mandino's The World's Greatest Salesman. And I'm listening to this while I'm working out instead of being on Clubhouse or listening to a podcast because I love the values that Og Mandino talks about in that book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did I forget this? Right.
Right.
I remember two scrolls, but you always got to be learning, relearning, and unlearning because it's let's get it. I mean, for me, what I'm guilty of is you reach a level of success, you're like, well, no, you know what? I'm good, right? I don't got to make no calls today. Or I'm hiding behind a computer. Harry's calling me out. I'm hiding behind a computer. And it's like, no, like you gotta be, I will like one thing that I'll say that re-listening for me that I'm relearning right now is I need to act now. I need to act now. So on the way from the gym this morning, I was making phone calls in my car. Like, hey, come on, right? Just getting that momentum. You know what the funniest thing about it? I got back here. We got $1,000 sponsorship for our women's conference. But if I wouldn't have put in that action, I don't believe it would have been reciprocated. And I'll never forget this. And I'll end with this because then I really want to spend the last portion of our show talking about your book is sometimes going back to what you said, I made those calls and sometimes we hide behind our computer. We don't make those calls. If you knew for a shadow of a doubt that if you called, it doesn't matter if it was 7:30 in the morning, 8:30, even 6 o'clock in the morning, if you knew it was a sell, would you make that sell when people would say, I'm still asleep? But if you knew it was a sell, what would be your perception on that?
Yeah, I jump right into it. I punch the numbers, right? You're going to make the call regardless. Yeah. And, again, we come up with excuses in general. It's Friday afternoon. People don't want to hear me. It's Monday morning. People don't want to hear me. It's Tuesday around lunchtime. People don't want to hear me. And we come up with all of these imagined barriers. And so the only good time to make a call is Friday morning between 9 and 9:10. We somehow convince ourselves that's the window. And it's really silly because, there are people that are, sales development reps. They're making hundreds of calls every day, Monday through Friday. There are real estate people, agents that are making calls on the weekends. There's investors that are making calls at wealth advisors, making calls in the evenings, right? There's all kinds of people making calls. So let's get rid of the excuses, right? There's opportunities there.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I want to shift here right now, Harry. I want to talk about this book. I got mine in the mail the other day, Selling with Dignity. Harry Spaight. Do you know this guy right here? Harry Spaight. I'll tell you, I'm loving this book. But when Harry Spaight wrote this book, what are two things that you wanted your reader, your audience to take away from this book, Harry?
Yeah. Okay, great. I appreciate you getting the book, number one. And number two, I think the key thing for me is you can be successful in sales without compromising your values, right? Just being a good person, that will go a long ways to being successful in sales. So that's number one. It's all about that, being a good person. And number two is this is not complicated, right? You don't have to become a scientist and have all these canned answers, pitches. There's all kinds of books written on sales. I'm just here to make it simple. It's really about sales made easy so that you can read it and say, I do that all the time, right? I ask for things all the time. What's so different about asking for the order? Or I negotiate all the time with my spouse about where we're going to eat dinner or what movie we're going to watch. That's negotiation. I can negotiate, right? Or, planning. I mean, I plan my vacation, I plan my day, or I plan the weekend. Can I plan my business a little? And it's very simple. It's layman stuff, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a simple guy. I make sales simple for you.
So let me ask you this. When they read this book, they're going to realize that I can do this too. Is what you're saying in an easy way.
Yeah, exactly. If that guy can do it, I can do it.
So Harry,
that's all I'm trying to do.
I want you to let us know, what is a scripture or what is a quote that you rely on times of adversity? What is a quote or a scripture that Harry Spaight goes to in crunch time when he's down and he's going to give up?
Yeah, I mean, so it's all about endurance, right? There's something that comes to mind about he is the one that is endured to the end. And, you know, it goes into salvation in the good book. So he that is endured to the end is the one that will be saved. But it's really endurance in business, right? Endurance in sales is what is going to bring success, right? There's always going to be adversity. And there's verses in the Bible that talks about that God's not going to let us face something we can't endure, withstand. You'll never let something like that happen to us. I believe that, right? So any kind of adversity I face, I said, like, if I'm facing it, then there's got to be an out, right? Because otherwise I wouldn't be facing it. I mean, how does that sound to you?
Yeah, no, it says I will laugh at this. All right. I will laugh at the world. This too shall pass. It's a season. It'll pass. It'll pass. So, man, well, you've been an amazing guest. Where can we get your book at?
Yeah, Amazon. So Selling with Dignity. That's the place to go, is really driving people to Amazon, and would love a review. I mean, reviews mean a lot. And I hope that you'll find value in the book. But I really put my soul into this, all about the things that I've learned. I want to share that and help others drive their wealth in their own families, and also drive the big picture, the economic engine of the country in which they live, because I believe firmly everything starts with a sale, just like you do, Daniel.
Yeah. So how do we get a hold of you, Harry? Somebody wants to connect with Harry Spaight. How do we get a hold of Harry?
You can find me on LinkedIn, as well as my email is harry@harryspaight.com.
Woo, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Go get your copy right now. Selling with Dignity. You won't be disappointed. A real down-to-earth approach that gets results. Harry was very successful for many years. Thank you for being our guest. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're stuck in life or business and you need help, go to danielgomezglobal.com. That's danielgomezglobal.com. And at danielgomezglobal.com, we're going to give you a complimentary discovery session. We also have our free entrepreneurs assessment there. I want to give you a complimentary 45-minute discovery session to help you and your business. And last but not least, thank you once again, Harry, for being a guest on our show. That's a wrap for this week's episode. We'll see you next week here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. Woo! This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to danielgomezinspires.com and get your copy today. That's danielgomezinspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.